Welcome to the new show, Game of Cards. We are so happy to have you here. I am the host, Claudia Quintero, and I hope you are having a good day. On today's show, we will take a look of Chinese expansionism of the perspective of Donald Trump's president administration. Also, we are talking about the projections and the action that have to take Biden in his political term. To have a context, in the United States is more important the stability and the unity than the affirmation of a political project. For many people, the United States was a representation of the liberalism, especially in economic area. Although Donald Trump has built a leadership crisis, losing the global leadership model. This model has an impact in the United States hegemonic model, causing his weakness. Political actions inside and out the United States has been affected. The European Union and the Chinese has a better infrastructure than the United States and offer better opportunities to countries that are in ways to be developed. We have three guests. With them, we will talk about these important issues. Give a nice welcome to Natalia Serra, Secretary of State of America, Paula Toro, expert in Chinese and US war, and Sophia Machado, expert in political analysis. Getting back, we are here with Natalia Serra. She will tell us about Chinese expansionism of the perspective of Donald Trump administration. How are you, Natalia?
Very good. I'm super grateful to be here.
I'm really glad. And now, what do you think about China's intention as a country? I mean, what do you think that they really want to do?
Xi Jinping's intention in a medium term is to position himself as the world leading power. To achieve this, he's developing a macro infrastructure project that will link its markets to the rest of the world. The project, known as One Belt, One Road, consists of creating the new Silk Road to change the old world order and establish a new trade network between Asia, Africa, and Europe that includes more than 60 countries. His government has spent about twice as much on infrastructure as the United States and the European Union combined. In 2014, China created the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, of which 41 countries are part of. Despite being only for infrastructure, its budget is half of the World Bank. China projects that the new Silk Road, partly financed by this bank, will cover 55% of the world's GDP, transport 75% of the world's energy reserves, and host 70% of the world's population.
So you are talking about an ambitious man. It's pretty amazing what you just told me, but really, what does America have to do with this?
Well, according to a talk given by Leonardo Buñac in 2021, to achieve this, China wants to have total dominance over the Sea of South China, what is known as the construction of Pearl Necklace, but the main enemy for this plan would be India, because of its faithful alliance to the USA. Despite significant interference within his government, Trump faced the threat from China, around the world, and in the United States. Trump's position against the Chinese Communist Party is a central piece for the legacy left by his administration. The Trump's administration faced the CCP directly on several fronts, including supporting Taiwan and Hong Kong. It's cut off sources of income of private companies linked to the People's Liberation Army. He also blocked the espionage threat posed by Chinese technology.
So now that Trump is leaving power and leaving his administration and this issue, what's coming?
the administration challenged old protocols to begin normalizing relations with Taiwan. This country is a democratic republic. That's the antithesis of the repressive communist regime in Beijing. Trump's strategy stopped Chinese expansionism in the world. For that reason, he became the main target. He also managed to keep companies that are controlled by the CCP on the US stock market. In the same way, during his administration, the US Justice executed extensive operations against the Chinese industrial espionage. It also detected and neutralized a large part of their intelligence infiltrated into the United States through diplomatic headquarters, using the facade of consulates. The Asian giant has decades in a campaign in which anything goes to supplant the United States as the most powerful nation. The CCP has plundered American wealth by stealing trade secrets. At the same time, it applies to protectionist policies and distorts markets. The regime, now presided over by Xi Jinping, funds a massive soft power campaign. In this way, it undermines America's interests.
Look how interesting is this topic, Natalia. Now we have for you a question from the audience. The question says, Trump did many things about this issue, but counting all he did, it was a truly benefit to the US. Was it at least a stop of Chinese expansionism?
Whoa, great question. Trump's condemnations lost credibility, and not only because they showered with praise for Xi. We hope this will be a strategy to keep their enemies close, but also in practice, Trump's behavior reinforced the sense that the United States behaves hypocritically and further emboldened China in its territorial and maritime revisionism in the Indian and Pacific Ocean. However, leaving aside the whole issue of the lost leadership model, Trump definitely tried to stop Chinese expansionism. Blocking the threat of espionage posed by Chinese technology is something Jinping will have a hard time restoring.
Well, as long as it can help us to stop this event, everything counts, right? Thanks you, Natalia, to help us to understand better this topic. It was very interesting, and thanks you for visiting us, and we are very glad to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
We are back, and now we have a new guest, Paula Toro, expert in war between China and America. She will tell us about the actions that have to take Biden in this period to contain the Chinese expansionism.
I'm glad to be here and to be able to go deeper on this issue, as well as giving an analysis of political projection of the next 4 years of the new storm president Joe Biden 2021-2025.
Great, Paula, I'm glad too. To begin, how do you think these events of January 6th influenced this situation?
Well, Joe Biden definitely is going to have to face very difficult situation during his presidential term, and as we have seen his presidential start with the wrong foot. On January 6, when hundreds of supporters of Donald Trump violently stormed the Capitol after having performed a march in which the president encouraged them to fight in protest over the election results, we must remember that Joe Biden has to improve the image of the country because it is difficult to see how the United States can promote democracy or defend human rights abroad when its image has been so damaged for what happened internally.
Exactly. Joe Biden is taking over a government that is little upset. What is the best thing he can do to solve this problem? How should he deal with it? And the contention of Chinese expansionism, is it important?
Well, in response to that, China's goal for 2049 is to achieve the reunification of Greater China to commemorate 100 since the creation of the People's Republic of China, and also to forget the misfortune that this country has gone through in the last 20 years. Biden promises to be tougher on Russia. In his first phone call, he confronted Xi Jinping with Chinese expansionism in Asia and human rights violation and said he will not lift Trump's sanctions against Iran when he unilaterally withdrew from 2050 nuclear treaty until the Ayatollah's government does not stop uranium enrichment. The United States is facing the increasing competition in the region from Russia and China, and both countries are trying to dispute power and influence through a combination of diplomatic, military, and economic means. Russia and China take advantage of the proximity to the region, their historical relations, the perception of decline in the commitment of the United States, and the crisis provoked by the COVID to establish and strengthen opportunist relationships. They're basically taking advantage of the misfortune the world goes through.
This means that he have certain obstacles with China, right? So, knowing that, what are the projections for the future?
The US strategy must be based on four main pillars: the military, the status of the dollar as a global reserve currency and pillar of the international financial system, global technological leadership and values such as freedom, justice, and the rule of law. While the liberals advocate an economic-oriented policy of engagement, John Mearsheimer, one of the leading figures in the realist tradition, claimed that the US will apply the method used by the Soviet Union against China. Biden could apply a more realistic self-containment doctrine, one that will impose more responsibility on his allies. The policy against the USSR was too centralist and costly. At the current juncture, it seems difficult for the US to fight China at similar cost, so it's more likely to pursue a two-pronged strategy. On the first hand, curb China's growth and economic expansion, and on the other hand, keep the regional alliance ready in case China becomes aggressive and threat US allies.
And now, Paula, we have the most important section of this program, the question of the audience. The question says, do you think China's macro project will be ready in next 5 years? Is it possible?
Well, in response to the curious question from the audience, Jinping's macro project is definitely possible, but I don't think it will be done in the next 5 years. Also, if Jinping continues increasing the AIIB budget, it will also increase their chance in the next 5 years. Explaining myself, Maria Claudia. Definitely, at some point in the future, Jinping will reach his project and take over the trade of Asia, Africa, and Europe. With the world international trade under their control, sooner or later China will basically take over the world. What the US can only do for now is try to delay or slow it down for a while. But this is just a little bump in the road for China's power.
It's always important to know what the future holds, or at least have an idea. Thanks you so much, Paula, for joining us today. We will be back in few moments for our last section. We were back, and as we know, Trump didn't left Biden an easy job. With our last guest, Sophia Machado, an expert in polity and analysis, we will talk about all these topics and make a conclusion. How are you, Sophia? Where should we begin?
Hi Maria, I'm happy to be here and excited to talk about this for a while. Well, I would say that we should start by building a leadership crisis in the United States, leaving the global leadership model of the United States for the floor. The global leadership model reflecting the strong breakdowns of institutions and weakening as the hegemonic model. One of these reasons for such a breakdown and weakening is the fact that Trump accepted the autocrat of the world and provoked his democratic allies, toppling the United States leadership.
That's a key point for this discussion. But now, talking about China, what do you have to say about this?
This will certainly be my second point of address. His presidency, Trump took certain measures and efforts against the Chinese Communist Party. His representative and other elements of the communist spectrum have become the centerpiece of his legacy, such as cutting off sources of income of private companies linked to the People's Liberation Army, and blocking the threat of espionage posed by the Chinese technology. It also removed all self-imposed restrictions on contacts with Taiwanese officials, laying the foundations for even closer relations with the democratic island.
I completely agree with you. But now, to put all of this together, do you have any conclusion to give us?
Joe Biden not only had to face a crumbling leadership, but also, to add another point to his list, Joe Biden has an inauguration, so to speak, of his term, an attack on the Capitol while they were in a session of Congress, performing and debating the Electoral College vote count, due to the cute testimony given by Trump to his followers, where he claimed that the election were a stole from him. Finally, Joe Biden took office on January 20, becoming the 46th President of the United States, with a ceremony at the gates of the Capitol, due to the previous assault, already named, ending in one of the most dramatic political transitions in the country's history. To end the triple crisis that the United States is going through, sanitary, economic, and social, but this is not all. He also proposed that measures that he will take during his mandate against Chinese expansionism, measures similar to those taken against the Soviet Union, although it also proposed to build on four main pillars of the United States power: the military, the status of the dollar as a global reserve currency and pillar of the international financial system, global technological leadership, and values such as freedom, justice, and the rule of law. It also proposed to list regional alliances in case of China becomes aggressive. And finally, among so many projects, he plans to recover the leadership model of the lost nation.
A good way to describe this hard situation. Today, we learned a lot. Thanks you, Sophia, for visiting us. We are very glad with all our guests. And now, for the audience, thanks you for joining with us again. See you the next week.